It's been around 349,903 days since this big guy, William the Conqueror, had the big metal circle thing put on his head by the
Wittenegger
and made England his bitch. That was an introduction I wrote back in December 2023 for, well, the video you're watching right now. A review on the next episode of the absolute dumpster fire that is the Horrible Histories reboot. And for months, that was all I was able to write about it, even after rewatching it over and over and over. I could just not put to words what was wrong with this one. Don't get me wrong, it's still terrible, but in such a different way from the two that I've covered so far. But after a few months of mulling it over, I think I finally got it. So let's not waste any more time and talk about why the Wicked William special is a big piece of horse dung. I feel it's important to start with just how weird of an experience watching this episode was. The first two episodes were so painful to get through that it was hard to find the actual meat in them, rather than getting caught up on just the unfunny jokes and the questionable writing choices. But this one was overall pretty painless to get through. That probably has something to do with how short it felt, because it feels super short.
Short?
Even though iPlayer tells me it's 25 minutes long, I still don't believe that it was any more than 10, because every sketch feels like it runs for about a minute max. This episode left such little impact on me that after watching it all the way through and actually getting quite a few pages of notes, I just sat looking at the ending credits, completely baffled, unable to take in all the information that had been thrown at me at once. So on one hand, whilst it was the easiest episode to get through, on the other there was such a clear drop, not just in the quality, but the actual quantity of writing. Now you've got to understand, as awful as the King John and Alfred the Great specials were, as pointless and infuriating as pretty much every part of them were, I can actually give them both credit for doing something with the change in format, from a variety sketch show to a dedicated special with a running narrative. Considering the cohesion and focus that change could bring to each episode, it could almost be considered a superior format over the original, if they ever got it right. And while I'm not saying those episodes got it right, they definitely did something with them by having consistent character arcs, having an actual plot, a noticeable narrative run through it. This episode kind of has that too, because it does have a chronological order of events that it kind of shows, that it runs throughout the whole episode. But this time it's way more interested in just showing a bunch of events rather than doing anything with William himself, or rather any of the main players of the Norman Conquest. If you can remember back to the past two episodes, we saw that the Magna Carta one was centered around showing that John was a bad king, which directly led to the signing of the Magna Carta. Every sketch about John was about that and tried to show that he was basically screwing everyone over, which makes sense because there's no point just talking about the importance of the Magna Carta without mentioning what led it to exist in the first place. And the Alfred the Great episode, despite being a lot less structured because of a complete lack of direction, still gave Alfred somewhat of a character that changes with his circumstances as he goes from the weak youngest brother to the King of England. Now, both those episodes didn't do any of that particularly well, but the point is that you can tell that the writers were going for something with them. This is a very weak praise, I will admit, but it is something. But with this episode, you'd think they'd really try to give William a character because most of the episode revolves around him, but there is nothing. 1 second, William's a bully who forces Harold to swear on holy relics to support his claim.
Not sure. Come on, mate. Swell, mate.
But the next, Harold's an asshole for stealing the crown, completely forgetting the previous thing that we were just shown.
But Eddie promised me that I could be King of England.
Sorry, mate.
So because of this episode doesn't just lack essential focus, but it doesn't even feel like it's building to anything. Seeing as they put so much emphasis on the Battle of Hastings in the introduction, you might think that the episode would be all about the build-up to it, but that gets wrapped up up about halfway through in a very underwhelming Battle of the Day bit that completely botches actually showing off the battle. And this connects pretty closely to the other major problem this episode has. It is the most unformative thing ever. I know I'm a history nerd, so I've gone into, these previous episodes knowing a lot of this medieval stuff anyways, but I'm pretty sure that most people, including probably most kids, aren't going to get anything out of this. It's not a problem unique to this episode in particular, but it just shows how badly this reboot misinterprets and flat out pisses all over the original show by even sharing its name. The whole point of Horrible Histories is that it's not like a school history lesson because it makes learning fun. The comedy is always in service of giving actual factual information, but in such a way that it's entertaining to watch so it doesn't feel educational.
This is the 7 o'clock noose. This is the 9 o'clock noose. And this is the noose at 10. And this is the person that wrote that joke.
That's the whole reason why the books, and by extension the show, were even made. But this reboot seems so determined to make sure that no one watching learns anything and has no fun alongside it. The jokes and the history are always so divorced from each other, to the point where several sketches will literally bounce between delivering the most shallow information possible before going into a stupid, unfunny joke that probably lasts too long. How anyone is expected to develop an interest in history from this show when you're only given the surface level details is beyond me. Plus, it feels like the research was done for this whole series by flicking through a history textbook and pulling out random facts that were stretched out for the basis of whole sketches. And according to the head writers, that's pretty much how they did it as well. To make an example, let's take the sketches leading up to the battle. We've got the introduction, a little scene with William and Harold being friends, a very
How do you do, fellow kids?
feeling a bit on William's iPad, the world's craziest fools, and the battle stuff. They all take up about 7 minutes, and aside from laying down very basic background information like Harold and William were both contesting the throne, the biggest piece of information you'll probably get from this is, hey, did you know that the Normans came from the Vikings? Because they haven't talked about Vikings enough on this show yet. Considering that the Norman invasion is one of the most taught topics in schools, in the UK at least, just covering the basics is not enough. I think that's why the original show didn't cover any of the major events, because, the people watching will have already learned about them, to kind of build on the already established knowledge. So I get that this episode was probably a bit harder to write and make than the others, seeing as about 80% of it is completely useless to anyone who attended a primary school history class, which is probably why it resorts to absolute random nonsense. The world's craziest fools probably has the most original topic out of them all, but even then it's just about how William supposedly fell out of his boat when coming onto the shore of England, and it makes this out to be like an incredible event that's been hidden from the public knowledge for years.
A lot of time, history is written down by the people who have killed all the other people who might have written it down. So it's no surprise that they tend to come out looking pretty good. And let me tell you, no fool is perfect.
Which will definitely have nothing to do with the fact that the story is probably not true and is an apocryphal story that is pretty much just an exact replica of a tale about Julius Caesar's invasion of Africa.
Apocryphal? What kind of tree is that?
It's not a tree, it's a word, apocryphal. It means that story's not true.
Really?
As for the quote-unquote myth that this episode really tries to debunk, this time it's that Harold Godwinson didn't really get shot in the eye at Hastings, but instead he was hacked to death by Norman soldiers.
And when will you be stitching the arrow that killed Harold?
You what, mate?
The arrow when he was shot in the eye.
Don't know what you're talking about. Harold was hacked to death fighting on the front line. Arrow in the eye. You've been reading too many books, Sunshine.
Hey everyone, Spudsy from the future here. So I did actually end up going on for quite a while about this, but I'm just gonna really summarize this shortly and say that the fact that they spend so much time of the episode dedicated to this is completely ridiculous, because it's just one of those things that doesn't have a definitive answer. People back in the 11th century were claiming that Harold was shot in the eye, was hacked to death. People now are claiming that he was hacked to death, shot in the eye. So the alleged idea, because the idea that the biotapestry was changed is just a theory, that doesn't prove it one way or another. So the whole argument that the episode is trying to make is completely stupid.
Biotapestry illustrates him being shot in the eye or cut down, but no one knows if this is what really happened.
And this sketch that kind of starts it off is also completely stupid. So we're gonna have a look at that now.
Monks! Oi, oi! He's waving at me? Oh, no, he was just scratching his bald spot.
Well, there you have it. What a privilege it is to see one of the greatest artworks in history actually being constructed. What a magical experience.
Oi, Abbott! Give us a wave!
Please stop doing that.
Did you get that? So the nuns catcalled the monks? Why? What is this? Even after all the times I've seen it, I still don't understand who on earth wrote this and thought it was okay to put in the final cut. Like, people sat down and watched this in a boardroom and say, yeah, release that onto TV. You know, is it funny? Did you laugh? Real answers only, did you laugh? Is it funny because they're nuns and, you know, they're doing unnunly things? There's literally a whole TV tropes page about that joke. It's probably a bit of a dead horse at this point, not very flexing comedic muscles, very simple basic joke. But is it funny because it's nuns who are catcalling monks? That's a bit fucking weird to put in a kid's show as like funny joke. I just want to imagine being one of the so-called expert researchers for this show after seeing this episode come out. You know, you've spent all those years getting a professional degree, you put in all that effort in, and it all culminates with the really bad, overdone non-comedy joke. And now it's time for the one moment of relief I can get from this episode. It's like I promised, it's time for the Norman Conquest Gangnam Style parody. Yes, I'm serious, this is real. I would like to remind everyone that this episode was released in June 2016, meaning Gangnam Style was about 4 years out of date when it was released. In fact, it never even had a chance to be funny because the original show was still being made when Gangnam Style was a thing. This isn't a demonstration of the comedic quality of the writers. I don't know what is. You know, imagine making a Gangnam Style parody all that time after it was popular, and yet it's probably the best thing your show has done so far.
Jump, jump, jump. Norman Style.
I'm serious. Bearing in mind its quality only comes from the fact that everything about it is completely ridiculous. You know, from the premise of it even existing to the backup dancing and everything in between, it's so ridiculous. I mean, just look at this guy here. He's doing that stanky leg like his life depends on it. I know the dancers were pretty intense in the original show, but at least those guys were in actual good songs. But yeah, this song doesn't really have anything new in it that the rest of the episode hasn't already beaten the viewer over the head with. Apart from the only mention of the harrying of the North. One of the most major consequences of the Norman invasion, which even people who supported William pretty hard called him out for, will not be getting mentioned at all.
We set the North on fire!
And while I have this nice little segue set up, I might as well say that none of the things that happened in the aftermath of Hastings are mentioned at all. There's a brief little quiz bit later on about how many castles the Normans built, but even that tries to say that nothing really happened because of them.
Of course, to make sure there were no English rebellions, my barons started building the castles.
Oh, did you hear that? Notorious Anglo-Saxon rebels Edgar the Atheling, Hereward the Wake, and Edwin and Morcar. Castles totally stopped there from being any resistance to Norman rule. I get all of the rebellions were stopped, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't at least get mentioned. But it seems this episode is way more interested with cutting away to other pointless stuff and rambling on for a full minute about what Dave Lamb said in a few words once in an episode of Gory Games.
At William the Conqueror's funeral, his servants stole his treasure and the church burned down.
Oh, and the exploding belly thing, but that's chatty death, so it's not funny at all, and I'm not going to talk about it. Oh yeah, remember the cutaways? You thought I forgot about those, didn't you? No, I was just saving them for last. Oh yeah, they're that good. And by good, I mean they topped the rest of the episode on the scale of fundamentally going against the point of Horrible Histories, of bringing history to life in a fun and interesting way. The best one for this is the first segment about Ibn al-Haytham, who I'd actually never heard of before. Too bad this episode didn't take the opportunity to help me learn more about him, because all this wants you to know is that scientists are weird. And by that I mean they're all fucking idiots. I know smart people can often be eccentric, but it's just a weird message to put in a kids show that the really smart people in society are all actually fucking stupid, on top of everyone else being fucking stupid. The characters in Horrible Histories suck. This is the worst program of all time. It's fucking terrible.
You know, nobody's perfect, so it's no wonder that some of our greatest scientists can be a bit odd at times. It's only natural. I'm a scientist and I've got an imaginary friend. I haven't really. I'm joking. We fell out. He stole my imaginary shoes. Stop following me.
Copy that.
Oh, and both of the guys playing Arab Muslims in this are white guys, by the way. Again, this fucking happened again. Just, I don't know what was the point of getting rid of the old cast if they were just going to do this shit in every episode. Could they really not find any Arabic people? Could they not find them? Just fuck's sake. Whatever, he then starts acting like a fucking clown and it completely goes off the rails.
Hey?
I'm a hairy lemon!
What are you doing?
Squeeze a lemon head!
So, William had chopping the Saxons by chopping them to bits.
This book contains all the important military inventions the Chinese knew about nearly 1,000 years ago. Break it down, Shang.
Well, it's got flamethrowers.
Whoosh!
Firebombs.
Boom!
Poison bombs.
Boom!
Napalm.
Don't really know what that is. Don't really know what that is.
What I just showed you, that's all this sketch is. It is just the laziest moment in this whole show, because they didn't even try to write any jokes. It is literally just expositing about a bunch of things that the ancient Chinese came up with absolutely no context to any of it. Like, take flamethrowers. You're trying to tell me that they invented this thing that was developed by Germany in World War I? Of course they didn't. They invented the whatever this is in 900 AD alongside every other ancient society that used, you know, they all used fire-based weapons, if you look into it.
This does not seem safe at all.
How is that helpful for anyone? It's not even funny, because I just thought of this now, because they did this with ancient Greek. The mastermind sketch of all the things that the ancient Greeks actually invented, and I get they didn't put up pictures for that one, but at least that sketch was funny. Fucking just Great British Bake Off sketch. I will not even give this the time of day, except to say that I surely, you know, if the bread had hemp in and she ate it, then she should be like getting high instead of stimming out. Whatever the fuck is going on, whatever's passing as acting right now, whatever. I think I need some of that fucking moldy bread after this episode. Oh, and don't forget, people living in poverty and having to eat terrible food is funny.
Ah, there you go. So am I Star Baker then?
I am an avocado.
I think the rest of the video has kind of spoken for itself, hasn't it? Plus, if the Horrible History writers don't feel that they have to write a conclusion for their stuff, I don't think I should have to either. So I'll just leave you with this kind of ultimate cosmic switcheroo. Since this episode's song was such a letdown, if you want to hear a song about the Norman invasion that's actually good, make sure to check out this parody of Sexy Back about the Bayeux Tapestry that manages to both look and sound a lot more like the old Horrible History songs, whilst being made by just a few teachers from Hawaii compared to a professional production team who somehow can turn out a worse product. It's actually really good. You know, you should go check it out. Okay, so to end off, the last thing that I forgot to put naturally into the script is that the cutaways. Another bad thing about them is that they just kind of barge into the episode and they literally just come out of nowhere and they have nothing to do with anything. But the old show managed to link topics of dubious connectability and relevance that were in different time periods together because they had those transition slides that actually created like links to everything, and the reboot does not use that. I think I remember one in the Magna Carta episode. That was the only time there was one, and that was just like, oh, back in England. That was all that was. There were transition slides, and they have never used them to make any relevance. It's just like, oh, fucking, guess we're going to another country now. Fuck.